All That was a major 90s hit with a lot of celebrity performances. Think of SNL for kids, but behind the scenes, cast members felt uncomfortable, like they didn't have a voice and their opinions didn't matter while filming. School was mandatory for all kids, roughly 3 hours a day, and parents or guardian was supposed to be present with the child at all times. But most of the parents stayed out of the way as not to cause trouble and go with the flow because they were novice in this career field. Some of the parents wanted to speak up and admitted to staying quiet out of fear that their children would suffer some form of retaliation. Cast members noticed that Amanda Bynes was often missing. She had frequent absences, and whenever they would question about where she was, they were always told that she was off writing with Dan Snyder, which made it apparent that the two had a special relationship. Amanda's dad was also very hands-on, and he was also attending special meetings to ensure his daughter's spot. This made several of her fellow cast members envious. This favoritism led to the creation of The Amanda Show. Early days on set were great, but over time, female writers on the show compared working on the series to being in an abusive relationship. Dan's behaviors created a hostile work environment. The staff was also overworked and underpaid, and they later found out this was a direct violation of the Writers Guild. The Amanda Show went on to be a big hit, just like All That. On set, cast and crew members noticed the closeness between Dan and Amanda. Their relationship consisted of touching, hugging, massaging, and again, no one said anything out of fear of being blackballed or even worse, fired. If the adults were too scared to speak up, can you imagine what was going through the minds of the kids? At age 16, Dan co-created What I Like About You for Amanda. During this time, Amanda was going through issues with her parents, so she leaned on Dan to help her with the emancipation process. Ultimately, the emancipation case failed, causing Dan to return to Nickelodeon full-time, and a decision was made to revive All That. The new cast of All That was overworked with long hours on set, violating child labor law. The comedy sketches were full of sexual innuendos and racial undertones, but again, no one said anything. Over time, Dan became verbally abusive and demanding, publicly degrading cast and crew. Cast and crew describe him during this period as an egomaniac. Things came to a head in 2003 when a production assistant, Jason Handy, who was working on the set handling the kids, was arrested and charged with the possession of child porn. He was sentenced for 6 years. 4 months later, another member of the crew, Brian Peck, was also arrested. His character was known as Pickle Boy. Unlike Dan, Brian was beloved by the cast and crew. They were totally shocked to find out that Brian had been charged with the essay of Drake Bell. Drake got his first series regular role on The Amanda Show. Brian and Drake became super close because they shared similar interests. And Drake's dad started to realize their strange relationship. His dad made a complaint to the production that caused him to be ostracized by the cast and crew. Brian continued his relationship with Drake, all while driving a wedge between Drake and his father, ultimately causing Drake to fire his dad as his manager. Drake and Brian continued hanging out after the Amanda Show wrapped. Brian ultimately infiltrated every area of Drake's life. He soon began abusing Drake repeatedly. Drake overcame his fears of never being able to work in Hollywood again and reported Brian to the police. He was arrested in 2003. Shortly after the arrest, Drake began filming another hit for Nickelodeon, Drake and Josh. He also began self-medicating as a form of escape. Brian only received a 16-month sentence for his crimes against Drake. Brian then went on to work at Disney on the series, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. As for Dan, he continued running shows like iCarly, Zoe 101, and Victorious at Nickelodeon. The shows were full of inappropriate jokes and sexual innuendos. In 2014, Dan wins a Lifetime Achievement Award. It wasn't until 2018 that Dan was finally ousted from Nickelodeon after allegedly receiving a $7 million payout. For more information on this sensitive subject matter, Quiet on the Set is streaming now